hello. Welcome to Take a Shot with Emem Joy Emma. I am your girl, your host, Emem Joy Emma. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whenever you are listening to today's episode. I hope you're listening with some love, some joy, some hope, some peace. If you're not, where you already know the drill, I am sending that your way right about now. Hello! I am so excited to be coming at you today with another episode. I hope that this episode, as always, is catching you in good spirits. And I hope all is well with you today. If not, well, I hope today's episode is able to bring you a little love, a little break, a little time off. I don't know. Something. Bring you a little something to brighten up your day. Hmm. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey. I woke up this morning and just felt the need to share a little bit about my journey, to share a little bit about this podcast, how it got started, and what it's about, and the story really behind the creation of this podcast. So, if you've been listening for a while, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you because you're amazing, and this hasn't been an easy ride, and you've stuck along with me, and I love you, and I thank you for that. And if you are a new listener, whenever you stumble across this episode, I hope this gives you a better understanding of this podcast and what it's about. And I hope that you're able to get something out of, my story. So, something about me is that I have always been someone that is really, what's the word I'm looking for here? I've always been curious about my purpose. I've always wanted to know what in the world was I born to do, and how can I do that thing? Ever since forever, I've always been that way. I've always wanted to know what was I born to do? And you know, what should I do with my life? And I feel like I'd asked this question my whole life, especially because I was not like into school. School was not my thing, girl. Like child, I hated school. I hated school, and I did not like it, and I didn't feel like there was anything, no subject that I was particularly fond of or excited about. There's nothing that stuck with me. I always struggled with it. It felt like everybody else was doing well and succeeding in at least one thing. And I felt like nothing really, I mean, people would say you're good at English, but I was like, I honestly never felt that way. I mean, I was like, okay, cool, but I didn't really enjoy reading. Like, I wasn't a reader. I don't know, like I would write, but it's not like I was like, oh, I love to write. Like, and it didn't feel that way. I just was like, okay. And so I was just like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what are my gifts? And for a long time, I remember feeling really burdened by that question. Like, I want to know because I don't know. And so one day I remember this was years ago when I was a little girl. I remember I was singing in my home, and I was just walking around the house and I was singing. And I remember hearing myself and being like, "Oh, okay, like I have a pretty voice. I think I can sing." And I was like, okay, this is a gift that I think is actually cool. And maybe I was like born to do this because again, I was really adamant. I wanted to know. I felt like I was created for more, and I wanted to. I hungered, and I wanted to know what that more was. And so I thought for a long time it was to sing. And so I like pursued it. In any choir I could be in, I would be in it. In any like show, I would sing. I just wanted, I felt like I found this thing that I could do, and I wanted to do it. And in the process of like pursuing it, I loved it. I fell in love with it. I loved music, and I still do, but I loved singing it. I would sing for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I never get bored and never get tired. I loved exploring music. I loved finding different artists. I mean, everything about music, I loved it. I loved the process. I loved watching artists like behind the scene documentaries of how they created things. I mean, I felt like, oh my gosh, I found my thing because I so enjoyed it so much. And everything else, I just, even though people would say, oh, you're good at English or you're good at writing or whatever, it wasn't something that I was passionate about. So I was like, no. But music, I was very passionate about it and I loved it. And I was like, this must be it. Because not only do I feel like I can do it, but I'm passionate about it. So this must be what I'm supposed to do. So I did this all throughout my like years, high school, middle, high school, college, everything. I I continued to pursue music in any way that I could. And then in college, I got saved for real. Like I grew up in a Christian home, I remember saying the Lord's Prayer, but I didn't really feel saved for real. Like, I mean, people say once you say it, you are, and that's true, but I didn't feel like I was saved because nothing really changed for me. Not a lot anyway. I still was living my life. But I guess I started taking my relationship with God seriously during my college years. And I remember, on one night I was in my bedroom and I was just spending time with God. And I remember God telling me, He was like, I want you to surrender your dream of music. And I was like, come again? And again, I think I've mentioned this that there's some times in my life where I won't know when it's God, and then there's sometimes when I will know for sure. Like I'm like, that's God for sure, you know. And this time I knew it was God. I knew God was speaking to me. I could not deny that, and I knew that He was telling me to surrender my dreams. And y'all, I cried so hard because I was like, how can you ask me such a thing? Like, how can you ask me to give up or to surrender the very thing that I felt made me? Like, if I don't do this, then what will I do? Who am I outside of this? I've always everybody knew me as the girl that sang. Everybody knew me so I was like, if you take this, you are taking everything from me. And I was like, my dreams are me. You take that, you take me. That's crazy. And so I just struggled with that, but it took some time. I mean, like it wasn't overnight. It took some time, but I eventually ended up surrendering that dream to God. And so I was like, okay, I'm giving you that. So what now? Because now I'm back to square one, which is what exactly am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? We're back at it, what am I supposed to do? So I don't know, I just continued serving God. I continued, even though I didn't know and I wasn't so sure, I continued to serve God and I continued to enjoy and build a relationship with Him. And then, as I continued to do that, I would pray, and I would continue to pray, and I would continue to ask Him, what am I supposed to do? And I would cry. And I remember one day in the afternoon, again, I was somebody that really wanted to know. So one afternoon, I was praying about it, and I remember just crying to God, begging Him, like, you've got to show me what I'm supposed to do, because I don't know. And I remember being in my room and feeling like God was right there with me, comfort. Literally, I don't know how to explain it, but literally like comforting me, like, it is well with you. I got you. I just literally felt comfort, like I was being comforted, like how like you're next to somebody and you're upset or you're crying and somebody's just like rubbing your back. I'm not saying that was, but that's what it felt like. I felt that feeling of just, you're okay, you are okay, and like loving, kind comfort even in those moments. So yeah, so I kept praying that. And then throughout my college years, I ended up going to a church, and God really started to speak to me a lot, uh, through other people, through my quiet times, about some of the things that He wanted to do in my life and some of the plans that He had for me. So He started to reveal to me the plans that He had, and what He planned for my life. And some of it was exciting. It was like, okay, like TV, radio. I was like, yes, yes. And then I remember one day He was like, education. And I was like, you're playing me. You're playing me. Because like I said, I hated school. It was not my thing. And so for God to come and tell me education, y'all, and mind you, this was like one of the things, of the many things that He started to reveal to me. But just hearing, I don't know why, but education just scared me. It scared me because in my head, for some reason, I heard education and I heard, oh my God, I'm going to be like, I'm not going to do anything cool. I'm going to be stuck in something that I don't really like. I hate school. I'm going to be stuck doing that. And that's going to be it. Like, I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to love it, and I'm not going to love my life. And it's just, I'm going to be bored. I don't know why, but that's just what I jumped to. And I remember the people that God was speaking through, I remember they had to like comfort me because I just started crying. They were like, okay, God is saying education, but you have to remember that education doesn't just look a certain way, and that education can be you educate in a variety of ways. But for some reason, that did not comfort me because I just, again, anything that had to do with school education, I want to know parts. I was like, no, no, go somewhere else with that. I don't want it. And they were like, you're gonna, this is gonna take you far and wide, and da 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 da. And I was like, no, it's education. I don't want it. I don't like school. But I got through that, and I kept going. So again, mind you, all this was happening while I was in school. In school, I was majoring in speech pathology. Speech pathology, now, okay, so that's a different story in itself. But basically, speech pathology, how did I come into that? Honestly, somebody just told me to do it. Like, in high school, I had a job. I was working a job, and one of my coworkers at the time, she asked me, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I don't know." And she was like, "You should do speech pathology." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." She was like, "Yeah, you make good money and da da da." So I was like, "Okay, I'll do it, whatever." And so I ended up being like, "Oh, somebody told me to major in speech pathology, and I didn't know what to major in." So when I went to college, I majored in speech pathology, and the program was like, well, if you major in speech pathology, what usually comes with this, people that major in this usually minor in special education. And I was like, okay, like, okay, you know. And so I said yes, and I did it. And I went through all my years, and then during my last year, I was like, "Yeah, this is not for me." But I was like, I already spent all this money, all these years on special education, on speech pathology and special education. I cannot change it right now because that's a waste of money. So I'm just going to graduate because I'm just done. I figured this out in my like senior year of my undergrad. So I was like, I'm done. I'm just gonna graduate and I'm just not gonna pursue this. And that's that. you know? And so I didn't pursue that. And of course, when you have something like speech pathology, in order to work the position, you typically need to get more credentials and all that stuff. And I just wasn't going to do that because it just wasn't my thing. But I knew I loved communication. And I honestly know that that's why I agreed to speech pathology because it had the word speech in it. And I loved communication. I love, oral communication and yeah, I just loved communicating. And specifically, speaking. I knew I liked to talk. I knew I liked to conversate with people. Maybe not all the time, but yeah, I enjoyed conversating with people. So when I heard speech pathology, that felt, you know, like, oh, speech. Oh, cool. It's oral communication. I like that. Let's do that. And so I think that's why I went through all those years. But what I found was like speech pathology is more about like the science and the anatomy behind that. And I was like, that's not what that's that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. But when I, graduated and I was, trying to figure things out, I was like, I still like the oral communication piece, but maybe I could do communication and get my master's in communication. And so that's what I did. My college at the time had this new major at the time. It was fairly new. It was called Lifespan in Digital Communication. So I was like, oh, okay, like that sounds dope. Let's go. Let's do this. And so I majored in that, and y'all, I loved it. I loved that. It was hard, but I enjoyed learning what I was learning, and I honestly wish that I, did it during my undergrad because I was like, I love this and wish I did it, during my undergrad. And so I did that. But the problem with communication is when you leave, it's like, so what job you finna get with that? And so that's where I was back at square one. So, okay, I have my master's now. That's pretty cute, but where you gonna work? And so I didn't know. I didn't know, where I was going to work or what I was going to do. And so as I was looking for jobs, I just kept finding myself within these education spaces and education opportunities. And every job that said yes to me had something to do with education. Like something, very much something, okay? And I was like, okay. I mean, I would be in like a peer educator program. I was an adjunct professor for a period of time. And I was substituting for a period of time. I was an avid tutor for a period of time. Literally. Um, and then right now I'm a special educator. So it was like I was always in education, always. And it was like, okay, all right. And I just didn't accept that I was an educator because I didn't want to be in these things. But they were the only jobs that were saying yes to me. Every other job was not saying yes. So I was like, oh my God. And so I continue in this field of education. And as I continued in it, I found out that not only do I have a gift to educate, but I actually love to do it. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe, and not only that, I was like, through the years, I started learning like there are different ways to educate. And it's not just, I don't have to just educate. Education isn't just delegated to one, to the public school or to colleges or whatever, that people educate, like YouTubers can be educators, there are different fields that you can use that gift. And so that started like because I loved it and because I loved doing it and because I loved um seeing the light bulb turn on when I taught somebody something and the reward that came with literally changing someone's life when you pass on or impart knowledge. I was like, okay, like let's get, let's do this, let's get into it. And so I went through this time of my life and I just, I was like, all right, we're cool with this. We're going to do this. We're going to, I guess, continue. So, how does the podcast come into play? I will tell you. Okay. So, like I said, I got saved in college and I went to this amazing church. And for years, I continued to, be at this church, serve at this church, and loved it. And at the beginning of every year, this church, they called for a fast, like most churches do. If you're a believer, most churches usually call for a fast at the beginning of the year just to kind of set your year and to set your intentions and to hear from God about your year and to focus on your relationship with him and all that. And so the years prior, the fast, it was a struggle bus because fasting, it ain't for the, you know what I'm saying? Like I used to struggle with fasting, child. And so this one year, I was like, I would take it seriously. So I took the fast seriously and I was like, I'm going to do this. Let's fast. I didn't really have like, I guess a part of my request was I just wanted more clarity about my life. But like, I don't remember having anything, well, I guess aside from just wanting more clarity about my life, more vision for my future. And so I went into that, into that fast with that mindset. And then I just wanted to get closer to God. So that, that was that. And then so I remember during this fast, as I was spending time with God, I remember God gave me a vision. And in the vision, I specifically saw a mic and I saw the words take a shot. And I was like, and for some reason, it just clicked together in my head after I saw the vision. And it just the words like you're supposed to start a podcast, and it just made sense in that moment. Like you're supposed to start a podcast. Again, let me say this: I never ever wanted to start one. I wasn't against it. I just never had the thought of it. Like it just wasn't a thought. It was like, oh, podcast exists. Cool. That was the end of my thought. Like I never planned to start one ever. When I had the vision and I saw the words and I saw the mic and I, had that like thought of like start a podcast, and I knew it was from God, I was like, okay, take a shot. What would that be? What would I talk about? I didn't know. I didn't know. Like God gave it to me, but I didn't know what I would talk about. I just knew I was supposed to start it. And so I was like, okay, if it's God, I'll really see if it's God, and I will search and see if anyone has that. And I searched and see if I could get that name, and I couldn't find anybody else at the time that had that name. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I set it up. And then also during that period of fasting, that same night, actually, God had told me, not only that, I want you to, open up a business account. I want you to start a business, open up a business account. I was like, doing what? Selling what? I was like, uh, this is crazy. Like, what? But again, I knew it was God, and I didn't know. Okay, so I started a podcast. I don't know what I'm talking about. I started a business. I don't know what I'm selling. Like, what am I selling? And but I just was like, all right, like, okay, we out here now. Like, let's just do it, I guess. And so okay, so at the time, my funds were small. Like I didn't have a full-time job at the time. I believe I was an adjunct professor at that time, and that did not pay a lot of money. And so I was like, you know what, God, if I'm really supposed to do this, because I just was testing everything, because I was like, if this is really you, I'll have enough money to be able to set the business up and set the podcast up. And y'all, I did. That month, I wasn't without anything I needed, and I had just enough to start to set up all the like logistics of the business and set that up, and set up like, when I say that, I mean like the name and all that stuff. It's like setting up the business, and then set up like the podcast, like what I would need, the mic, all that stuff. I had and I had money for I had money for life stuff too, on a pretty much part-time, like payment, whatever, part-time job. And I was like, wow, okay, like God came through. So like every prayer I was asking to like confirm that I was not tripping, he was answering it. And so I was like, okay. And then on top of that, I had gone to my pastor at the time, and I was like, listen, I just want to know I'm not tripping, because this is crazy. So I tell her, and I'm thinking she's about to be like, girl, sit down. And because I've had different ideas. I'm somebody that's like, I have an idea, let's go for it. I thought she was about to be like, sit down, you're doing the most, that. She was like, oh no, that sounds like God. That definitely sounds like God. Let me pray for you, and let me come in agreement with you and pray for you. And she prayed for me, and it was like, yeah, God is leading, is leading people this way, and this sounds like him, and I bless you. I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is crazy. Like, this is crazy. This is crazy. Okay, let's do this. And so I did it. And the thing is, when I started doing it, I was like, okay, God, every episode, you have to tell me what to say. Because again, like I said, the first thing I asked her was, what do you want me to talk about? Because I don't know. Like, this is giving walk by faith and not by sight. This is giving, like, different, just crazy and different. And what is going on? And so I was like, you got to give me you got to give me episode ideas. You got to give me, because I don't know what I'm doing. Um, and not only that, y'all, I was scared. I was so scared because I am a private person. I like to give my business to myself. That video of that old lady where she's like, what she said, she's like, sometimes I'll tell people my business. I keep my business to myself. That is me to the off degree. Like, I'm like, my business, myself, okay? I am the queen of mind your business ministries, okay? I mind mine, okay? I might be nosy about yours, but mine, I mind it, okay? I mind it. And I minded my business, okay? And now, all of a sudden, I'm on this, podcast asking God, what do I say? And he's like, talk about he's giving me these ideas and I'm having to be more vulnerable and share more about my life. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, you doing a lot. You asking for a lot and doing a lot. Like, you want me to do what? You want me to share my life story? You want me to share all the things? And not only that, like, you want me to put this out for people, you know what I'm saying, like, to consume? Like, people that I know, people that I don't know will watch this and see this and might listen to this. Pourquoi? Why? But, honestly, I could not rest. There are many times where I was like, it ain't that many views anyway. I could stop. It just wouldn't. I could not. I could not rest. He would not allow me to rest till I put it out. To this day, till this day, till this day, yeah. He wouldn't. Ideas come. I said, it's like you gotta get all this stuff out of you, and you gotta get it now. And so, that has been my journey of just like trusting God and as I put out the episodes, I started learning like what it's about and learning it's like this is about you taking a step of faith and trusting God, and as you're doing that, sharing your lessons along the way and inviting others to do the same. And I was like, but that didn't become clear until I started doing it. It did not become clear to me the purpose of the podcast until I kept doing it and kept showing up. Not only that, like I told you, I was like scared. I was terrified actually to put myself out there. I didn't want negative comments about me, because I just didn't like people in my business and all that. I know I didn't want any of that. And so it was so bad that I would get so scared after I posted an episode. I would go to my room and I would like curl up in a corner because I was like, what are people going to say and think about what I am doing? It was, I struggled a lot with that too. But I felt God being like, get up and do it again. 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 And so here we are 5+ years later, and I'm still you know, by God's grace, we still here, baby. So this is the part I'm going to stop in this story for this episode. But I do want to share some things and just say to you that if you are in a place where you're like me, you want to know, you're like, I want to know what I'm supposed to do with my life because I don't know. Please know that God wants to tell you. This is not a game to Him. He is going to reveal to you what the plans He has for you. It is His desire, His will, and He is going to reveal it to you. So please don't give up. Please don't throw in the towel. Please don't think that that's a lie from the enemy. Don't think that God does not want to. Don't think God doesn't care. He does. And He absolutely wants to reveal it to you. There's a scripture that says, delight yourself in the Lord and He'll give you the desires of your heart. So continue to delight yourself in Him. The one thing that really helped me through that journey was I kept showing up. I mean, I didn't know what the heck I was supposed to do with my life, but I knew God changed my life, and I knew being in a relationship with Him really changed my life. So I kept going to church. I kept serving. I kept, you know, um, going to my Bible study. I kept doing, pursuing God, not out of obligation, but just out of like getting to know Him. And as I did that, He would reveal, whether it was like through other people or through my quiet time, different ways, He would just reveal to me the things that He had planned for my life, and that they just started unfolding and started showing me all these different gifts and talents and things and desires. He started giving me desires of things that I never had a desire for. I never thought of, I never had a desire for. He started giving it to me. And so that scripture talks about delight yourself in the Lord, that'll give you the desires of your heart. He just started putting desires in me, giving them to me, and giving me the courage to go after them. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't a pretty journey. It hasn't been a pretty journey. But the fact is, like, the more I'm in God and the more that I say yes to every step that He's taking, the more clarity He's provided for me. And I just want to say that to you, that as you continue in God and as you continue to say yes to everything He said to you, and that could be as simple as continuing to spend time with Him, continuing to grow in Him. The more you do that, the more God will reveal so much to you. And so I just want to encourage you with that. Like, God is not hiding, and nor does He desire to hide that from you. So just continue to delight yourself in Him and take the steps that He's calling you to take. And sometimes that God will tell you to do something and it doesn't seem like it's connected to purpose. Like, He might tell you to stop dating someone or, start something or whatever, and it doesn't seem like it has anything, or step away from a situation or a friendship, or stop doing this or that. And it just doesn't feel like it's connected to purpose. Like, it's not, it doesn't feel like it is. But oftentimes God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. So sometimes you taking that step, as you take that step, God will reveal to you the next step and could reveal to you, you know, what the things that He has planned for you. You know what I'm saying? As you take step after step after step, things will start to become clearer for you. That might be the path that God has for you. Mind you, it may be that somebody else next to you, God reveals to them in a moment, all the stuff that He has planned for them. Please don't compare yourself to that person, because the journey that God is taking you on and the journey that He's taking that person on is two different things. And what the enemy loves to do is he loves to have us compare ourselves to each other and say, see, God is doing that for that person. He's not telling you. So that must mean XYZ. That must mean He doesn't want to tell you. That must mean He doesn't love you. That must mean is nothing for your life. And all that garbage, all of that is nonsense. It's garbage and it's a lie. It just means God is going to reveal things to you in His time and His way. But He is going to reveal that to you. For me, as I continued in God, He revealed bit by bit as I walked with Him. And He continues to do that. I continue to dream dreams that I never thought that I was in me to dream. I never had the thought or the, again, just with this podcast, I I didn't have a thought to, do it. I didn't care to start one. But here I am, and I absolutely enjoy it. Teaching, I told you, I hated it. School was not my thing. If you looked at my report card, you would see big, fat, juicy F's. I did not like it. But here I am, an educator, and I love it. I don't love all the extra stuff that comes with being an educator in 2023. That's a different conversation for a different day. But the art of teaching itself, that's my jam. I like it. Um, of preparing something and teaching someone something. One of the rewards of being a teacher is, man, if we would take the nonsense out of education and just allow teachers to just do their thing, and just teach it, I feel like societies as a whole would be a better place. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But I do enjoy it though, and the rewards that has come, and the change, and the impact. The impact. It's like, oh my God, it's humbling. It's like, God, you would use me to change somebody's life like this. I mean, there are times where I've started teaching, during the first year, and students have struggled with something, and the change I've seen over time as God is, because I always pray and ask God to give me strategy on how to teach or, deal with certain students. And the change that has come, and, the impact that I can see that, I've had, by the grace of God, it's like, whoa, it's led me to tears, because I'm like, wow, me, this girl that struggled so badly with education gets to do this. Like, wow, and so God really will. And He has a plan. He has a plan for you. So just, if you're struggling with that at all, please just know that He wants to reveal, He will reveal. However He chooses to reveal to you, that's His business. Just know that He will. Keep going, delight yourself in Him, and God will absolutely show you the path to take. God will show you the path. Listen, I told you, speech pathology, somebody told me to get into it. I didn't, choose it. It was just like, oh, speech. I like that. That sounds cool. Let's go. Let's do it. And then after I graduated, I was like, that must not be for me. But looking back now, I'm able to connect the dots and see, like, no, I've learned a lot. And as I'm looking to the future, and I'm dreaming with God, and I see how it was necessary for me to take those courses. And although I'm not a speech pathologist, I've learned so much that I've been able to apply throughout my life, and of course, it was my major with communication too. And as I look to the future, and so, like, God, the Bible says the steps of a righteous man is ordered by the Lord. And even when I didn't understand, my steps were still being ordered, because God is just that clutch. He's just that good. And so be encouraged. Be encouraged. God's got you. Be encouraged. even in the middle of this, when you cannot make sense of your life right now, God is literally cooking. He's in the kitchen cooking, cooking up your life. And when you look back, they always say hindsight is 2020. When you look back, you will see his hand in so many different things, and things will start to make sense. But if you quit right now, if you decide God must not be for me and walk away, you doing a lot. Step back for a second, breathe for a second, cry it out for a second, talk to somebody for a second, but don't quit on God. Keep going in God, keep loving God, trusting God, learning about him, walking in his ways, being obedient to him, and he will show you. He will show you. He will show you. I promise. All right, that is it. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, or if it blessed you, or if you could think of anyone that this will bless, go ahead and share it with them. Sharing is caring. And we just, bless somebody else with the episode. If you thought of anyone else, go ahead and share it with them. Also, if you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're listening, rate and review the podcast, because when you do, it just lets others know that we are here, we exist. Come through, take your shot with us, all that good thing. And then also, how are you taking a shot? What does your journey look like? What does your purpose journey look like? What are you taking a shot with in God right now? What is God asking you to do right now that maybe you're unsure about, or maybe you don't know, or maybe you're actively taking a shot by taking steps of faith to do something? What is that? And share it, and let me know, let us know. If you are on Instagram, we are on Instagram at Take a Shot Podcast. Or you can reach out via email at takeashotpodcast@gmail.com. Again, reach out, let me know how I can be praying for you and supporting you in any way that I possibly can. Also, the podcast has merch. I don't know if you know, but we got merch. So if you want to get your merch, head on over to shoptakeashot.com. Again, that's shoptakeashot.com. As always, I love you and I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. And I can't wait to talk to you in the new episode. Bye.